So hello everyone, this is Craig Morris and I'm here speaking with Anna Leidreiter of the World Future Council. Anna, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe the first thing you can do is just tell us a little bit about what the WFC does in the field of energy.
So we look at what has worked on a policy level worldwide in a specific jurisdiction. And then we engage policymakers, actually mostly parliamentarians and mayors and city councillors, in a discussion on how can we replicate that success story somewhere else. And with regards to energy, I work specifically on renewable energy. We have identified different policy frameworks that were actually really successful, and feed-in tariffs was one of them, and Germany was a great example for many years for that. And the second really specific policy measure is setting 100% renewable energy targets.
Well, why is 100% important? I mean, you could also say we want to double the share of renewables, or we want 50% by a certain date or whatever. Why is 100% so important?
Yeah, around the UNFCCC, the climate policies, there was a lot about talks like reducing emissions or making sure that we are on track to zero emissions, or this kind of narrative, which is more a narrative around what we shouldn't do or what we should not have in the future.
Right.
And we said, you need a different currency for success. You really need a different way of talking about how the future looks like. And 100% renewable energy is a very clear message. It's a very positive message that engages a lot of people because it actually tells you where we should be going. And talking about renewable energy from that perspective, it also gives the whole debate, the whole discourse, a completely new set. And that's why
it's also a very clear stance on nuclear, which is also an option for the decarbonization camp as well.
Very true.
But I mean, who has a 100% renewable energy target? Because Germany doesn't.
Germany doesn't.
Right.
But in Germany, there are more than 140 regions and districts and cities that have set 100% renewable energy targets.
Okay.
And more than 80 of them have already reached it. By engaging people and actually engaging new stakeholders into the energy market, we reach this target much quicker and much more sustainable.
Can you give me some examples of the work that the WFC does globally? I mean, how does this kind of campaigning look maybe in the developing world and maybe in the North America or something? Have you got some examples for us?
Yeah. So very specifically, we are developing criteria or developing some guidelines for policymakers how 100% renewable energy can be achieved. And we're doing that directly with the policymakers. For example, in Oxford County in Canada, we brought them to Germany to look at some of the examples that we have, Rhein-Hunsrück district, Frankfurt. So they have visited the practitioners here in Germany, and they went back to Oxford County, to Canada, and develop their own roadmap and see what can they replicate.
Okay, and so they're not coming to Germany and just copying things. They're taking a look to see what would work. Right?
Exactly.
And what about? You work in developing countries as well, or emerging economies, the whole spectrum. Have you got an example of how that looks?
Yeah, so Morocco is probably a good example for that. They import 90% of their energy.
Right.
All people have energy access in the country. We as the World Future Council, working with stakeholders in Morocco, we are looking at opportunities to use distributed energy to really ensure the distributed, decentralized renewable accessibility uptake being enabled by policy elements such as self-consumption, such as getting access to the low voltage grid for households, for small companies, and so on.
Do they say we can't afford this, Germany can?
Yes. So we get a lot of interest especially in developing countries. And just to give you one example from my recent journey, we also work in Tanzania, and we brought a group of policymakers from Tanzania to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is another really pioneering example in the world. They have more than 4 million solar home systems in rural areas at the moment, and they have implemented a very coherent institutional policy framework on the national level that actually enables everyone in the country to have their own solar home systems. Doesn't matter how little their income is per month, they can pay it via a financial mechanism,
like
microfinance models, exactly. So there are really like adaptive models in the country that worked really well, and that helped the people in their daily life.